Oh, hey there. My goal for 2026 is to read 4 books a month, and this month I read 7, and here's the 5 that I would recommend to you. Number one book that I read this month is actually a book that I read for the second time this month. I read this book last year, and I told myself that if I hit my 4-book marker for the month of January, I could reread this as a treat. It is the single greatest book that has maybe ever been written on the topic of queerness and Christianity. And of course, the book I'm talking about is The Widening of God's Mercy, Sexuality Within the Biblical Story by Christopher B. Hayes and Richard B. Hayes. This book is written by a father-son duo, cutie, of biblical scholars. One specializes in the New Testament. He's a New Testament scholar. And one specializes in the Old Testament. He's an Old Testament scholar. The first thing that hit me as interesting about this book specifically is the fact that Richard changed his mind. Richard B. Hayes wrote a chapter of a book that condemned homosexuality, right? And then through prayer and scriptural study and the voice of God speaking in his life, changed his mind. I've talked in the past about the dangers of an echo chamber and how I never want to exist in an echo chamber. And so to me personally, somebody who writes an argument or an opinion piece from a standpoint of this is what I've always believed and this is true and I've never questioned it and that is less compelling to me than somebody who has been I used to believe this way, I used to argue this way, and then through work and effort and study and faithfulness to finding truth, my opinion changed. That is always going to kind of hit me as a more compelling argument because you've been pulled out of an echo chamber. That was the hook that got me into reading this book. Now let me tell you what the book is about. This book is challenging for Christians, not even because it's about homosexuality. This book is challenging for Christians because it challenges the idea that God never changes. Christians, we are told that God is unchanging, and yet the Bible is actually full of objective examples of God changing his mind and changing his laws and saying things like, the laws that I gave you were bad. Don't do them anymore. Do these new laws. God changes his mind over and over and over and over again in the Bible, but we're told that God never changes. Those are contradictions. And so this book gets at that. That's the angle that this book is taking. This book talks about all of the examples of God changing his mind in the Bible and makes an argument that every single time God changes his mind in the Bible, he is moving more and more and more and more and more towards his ultimate goal, consistent ultimate goal of more inclusion in the community of Christianity and more inclusion in the category of God's people. My most favorite thing about this book is the fact that when you talk to people about homosexuality, if they already believe that that is what the Bible means, you're not going to change their mind, right? We have had the same arguments over and over and over and over again. We have had the same talking points over and over and over and over again. And it really, unfortunately, doesn't matter how much you explain about context or how much you explain about what that word actually meant or how much you talk about power dynamics or pedophilia or rape or anything like that in the Bible. No matter what you do, if you're making the argument that's already been made, you're not going to change someone's mind. If somebody objectively believes no, the Bible was talking about 2 loving, consenting adults engaging in a God-honoring relationship, that's an abomination, you're not going to be able to talk them out of it with conversations of context. You won't. People have tried, people have failed. This book doesn't do that at all. It doesn't make any argument that we've heard before. This book is saying hey, even if you believe that the Bible says homosexuality is an abomination and the Bible objectively means point blank, literally face value, yeah, homosexuality is abomination, you still, that doesn't need to be true now. That still doesn't mean that it's the will of God now. Even if that's what God meant then, God changes. I fear I'm not representing this book very well, and a lot of people are going to be that's heresy, just because of the whole God changes thing. But even if what I've said makes you angry, you should read this book. If what I've said makes you think that's heresy, you should read this book. because it's so important and it lays out such a solid theological argument. And it's from credible people. Like, sometimes I'll say things on the internet and people will be like, "You're crazy." And I'll be like, I mean, it's fair that you think that. Like, I have a ministry degree. I went to college for like 5 years and that was it. These people are the people who wrote this book are like well respected, well established in their field. They're professors, they're theologians, like they are biblical scholars. They're like people who are a lot more trustworthy than me. So like I fear that I might be sounding crazy, but like they don't sound crazy when they say it. I really, 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 really think that every single Christian in the whole wide world should read this book. It's so good. It's so good. Also, on a scale of like how easy is it to read, I would say maybe a 5 out of 10. It's a little bit scholarly. It's a little bit theology bro jargon. It's a little bit like you might have to Google some words if you're not used to reading biblical scholarship. But it's not hard. It's definitely not hard. And I read it the first time I read it in one day. And the second time I read it, I like took a lot more notes and like did a lot more like in-depth, like engaging with the storyline. And so it took me, I think, like 2.5 days. But again, this is the single best book I have ever read on Christianity and queerness. I think it might be the best book that will ever be written on Christianity and queerness. That is until I finally write a book on Christianity and queerness. I'm just kidding. I'm not writing a book. Don't get any ideas. Anyway, that is my 5 book recommendations from the month of January. Frankly, I need book recommendations. If you've read books that you love, please tell me about them. Because right now, my list of to-read books is like 21 books long. And that's frankly not enough to get me through the year if I'm trying to do at least 4 a month. So if you have recommendations, put your recommendations in the comments. And please read this book. Please read this book. Please read this book. The audiobook is free if you have Spotify Premium, I think.